People who have visited the US, what is your WTF America story? Story 1. I'm from America, and I have a friend from Australia. It amazes him that there are so many flags everywhere. Apparently, that is a distinct USA thing. He'll make jokes about how we all forget where we are. On a 3-week trip to the US last year, I counted over 1,000 US flags. I don't think I've seen that many Australian flags in Australia despite having lived here for over 30 years. Story 2. French ex-exchange teenager in Cali here. Summer 97. I was young and missed the field trip bus to Disneyland from San Diego, so I did something pretty stupid. I hitchhiked to get there by myself. Dude who took me looked like a plain-clothed cop, but a good buddy. When he heard I was French, he told me to never ever hike in the USA because it's pretty dangerous. Plus, people could assume I'm a serial killer. So I boasted, "Look at you. You don't think I'm a serial killer. I'm not that dangerous looking, or you are careless." He told me to open the glove box in front of me. There was a supposedly loaded fucking Desert Eagle inside. He dropped me at the bus station and insisted to give me $10 for tickets. I had cash and waited for me to go in the bus. Story 3. Me paying at gas station. Attendant hears I have an accent, smiles at me. "You speak English so well." "Thanks, although I should. I'm from England." Cue confused look. Wait, she trailed off. "Speak English there?" Her colleagues stared at her in open-mouthed disbelief and then broke out laughing with the other customers. She looked mortified. To be fair, I felt terrible for her. She was only trying to be friendly to a foreigner. Story 4. Went into Walmart. The fabled creatures there are just as the internet portrays them as, nonetheless still mind-blowing. My first trip into a Walmart, I saw a man in a brass button blazer with perfectly Brill-creamed hair, sparkling white teeth, orange skin, and white slacks that looked like he had stepped right out of an advert from the 1950s. He was with a very large woman wearing a "I love my gay daughter" t-shirt. I was so happy. Story 5. When I first moved to America, one of the first things I saw after leaving JFK was a homeless man masturbating outside of Union Station. It wouldn't have been that strange, except I had heard a lot of things about New York City from people who had been there, or knew someone who knew someone, etc. And I was worried what I was seeing was just going to be an everyday, everywhere thing all throughout the country. Story 6. Those gaps in your toilet stall doors, what are they even for? Story 7. When I went to the US the first time and ordered a meal from Burger King, ordering a large fry, Coke, and Whopper, I was blown away by the size of it all. Each item was larger than the same item back home. I was already like, WTF, but then the cashier said I could have a second Whopper for $1. Again, I was like, WTF, sign me up. Another time while I was in Daytona, I went to a restaurant and the woman kept refilling my drink, again and again. Being a bit shy, I did not tell her to stop and expected a bill of $15 for sodas, but then I found out the refills were free. WTF, free refills? I'd only seen that at places like Subway, but so many restaurants in the US had free refills. I love the US for restaurants and food in general. The portions are massive and very reasonably priced. Story 8. So, do you live in East Germany or West Germany? Sorry, my World Encyclopedia set is from 1985. Story 9. I was 12 years old when I spent a month in Minnesota. I remember going WTF, or at least a French equivalent, when we went to a Mall of America and I saw the frigging roller coaster inside of it. Story 10. A woman was quite surprised to learn that we don't celebrate Thanksgiving in the UK. To be fair, they celebrate Thanksgiving in Canada. Story 11. Aussie here. When I started chatting to a cashier, she squealed and asked where I was from. I told her Australia, and she instantly dumbed down how she spoke. "Do y'all speak English down there?" I replied sporadically. She laughed and informed me that wasn't a word. Story 12. Korean friend who just got off the plane in Atlanta. So many big fat black women. Yes, he said it loudly and in public, but my favorite was a Japanese fellow who went into a buffet with a group of us in Vegas. He sits down and his plate looks like a normal little meal. We all have heaps of shit all over ours, and his eyes bug out that we have so much food. I said he's really going to freak out when he realizes this is only our first plate. Story 13. How spread out everything is. Like, it's pretty much impossible for me to survive without a car, while everything I need to go to on a regular basis back in London was a 10-minute biking distance. Also, the number of pickup trucks people own without needing. especially out here in the West. The metro area I live in is like 8% the size of London population wise, but it'll take you 45 minutes by car to drive from one side of town to another. If you live anywhere in America, outside of Washington, D.C., New York, Boston, downtown Chicago, or a few other places, it's vital to own a car. Story 14. Do you have cell phones in Norway? This was in 2012. Kids nowadays get an iPhone or iPad before they're born. Must be very painful for the mother. Story 15. I asked an old lady if it's true all Americans carry guns. She smiled and pulled a revolver out of her purse. She was a nice lady. Story 16. I visited from Canada a couple years ago. Everyone was very nice and had the exact same mildly interested reaction to a credit card with a chip. Story 17. After moving from Africa as a teen, I am repeatedly asked why I moved to Africa in the first place, to which I reply that I've always lived there. I'm also asked, so why are you white? To which I reply, oh my God, Karen, you can't just ask people why they're white. However, when they reply with blank stares, I realize they aren't referencing Mean Girls. Story 18. This was in northern New York, near Buffalo, and a waitress overheard that I was headed back to the Pacific Ocean. She asked where I was going, and I said Vancouver. No, honey. Vancouver is in Canada, and that's on the Atlantic Ocean. I said, Canada is from sea to sea, just like America. She replied, no, that's not right. Only America is from sea to sea. The combination of her being absolutely sure about something and her total ignorance was surprising enough, but the fact that she felt she should basically interrupt our conversation by telling me I am wrong about what ocean I live beside was weird. Story 19. I'd never been out of Australia before. In Australia, only farmers and cops have guns, and some criminals, I guess. So I had never seen a gun that wasn't in a cop's holster in my entire 30-year existence. We go to the US for our honeymoon and have the honor and privilege of visiting a Walmart. The guns are just on the shelf. You can touch them. A fellow Aussie friend who was with us at the time asked the cashier if she could hold one. He looked at her as if she had asked if it was okay to breathe the store's air. Can I hold one? This big one? She asked, incredulous. Sure, if you want to, the guy said, confused and bored at the same time. She picked up this big-ass gun. Sorry, not a gun guy, don't know what it was. It was about the size of a shotgun, but it was bulkier, and was getting us to take photos of her with it. If I had a gun like that at home and walked outside my house with it, someone would drive past and see me in about 10 seconds. They would call the cops, which would take about 30 seconds. The police station is just up the road, so I estimate a cop car would arrive in about 3 minutes, and it would also take about 10 seconds for a cop to ask me politely to jump in his car and come for a nice chat down at the police station. But it would be fun for 4 minutes. About the size of a shotgun, but was bulkier. That sounds like a shotgun. Story 20. Canadian. Was in a gas station waiting to pay before prepay took over, and a couple of guys with handguns and holsters were in line in front of me, resting their hands on the guns. Not so much WTF, I knew to expect it, but it's a memory I think of often. As a Texan, a group of people with their hands on their holsters would make me extremely nervous. It's one thing to carry or even open carry. Acting like you might draw that gun is another thing completely.